you are a wine lover, you are a black belt in Aikido, you are a world-known speaker, and you just wrote this book, Mastering the Art of Public Speaking, 8 Secrets to Transform Fear and Supercharge Your Career. Michael, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, Michael, I'm so full of curiosity. You had a winding path in your life, and I would like to know, just from the start, can you tell us a little bit about your background? That 17-year-old kid, when you were going to high school and trying to decide what to do with your life, what was going on in your head at that time?
Well, the main thing was I was thinking about how I could help make the world a better place because it was a time when I was 17. There was a lot of social strife and conflict. Political divide was quite extreme. We had the Vietnam War in the news every day. We had racial tensions, and it seemed to me that it was important to try to find something to do to help make the world a better place. And at first, I actually even thought about going into political science, but I quickly realized that wasn't going to help.
Mm.
So I thought about psychology, philosophy, and I learned a lot from studying psychology and philosophy, but I realized that I needed more practical approaches, not just academic, not just theoretical. So I studied with a number of extraordinary teachers of meditation and mindfulness. This was before it was called mindfulness.
Okay.
And it seemed to me that if we could all become more aware, have more self-knowledge, more understanding of others, that would be a really good place to begin. It also occurred to me that creative thinking was really important, that we needed new ways of thinking about our problems. So I began focusing on creative thinking and communication, and I've been studying those things and teaching them now for many, many years.
Okay, and you graduated in what, and what was your first job then?
Well, I graduated in 3 years with an honors degree in psychology and philosophy.
Wow. Wow.
And then I went and spent a year studying the world's meditation traditions with a great teacher. Then I went to graduate school and I got a master's degree. I made up my own topic for my master's degree. There's my diploma right there.
Wow. Amazing.
Psychophysical re-education, re-educating the mind and body. What
Okay.
happened was my master's thesis got published as my first book, and then it got translated into 16 languages. So all of a sudden, I became an international author.
What was the name of that title?
That book is called Body Learning, an
Right.
introduction to the Alexander technique. And it's still in print. It's still available. It actually sells very well 40 years after it was released.
How can you explain this so early success? I mean, there are people who try to be writers for, I don't know, they take university classes and workshops and they get all this, become a writer in 60-day classes, and they do all kind of this social media to become a writer, and you right out of school with your master thesis, you become an international known writer. How can you explain that?
Well, luck. But not just luck, because it's funny what you say. You're right. People say to me, I want to be a writer. Can you help me? They say, I want to be a public speaker like you. Can you help me? And I say, yeah, get something to write about,
Right.
get something to speak about. So the reason I became a writer and then a professional public speaker is because I was interested in these subjects:
Right.
creativity, communication, mind body coordination. I actually learned something and had something to write about and something to speak about. So if you want to become a writer, get something to write about first. If you
Right.
become a
Right.
speaker, learn something of value to other people and then figure out how to speak about it. So that was the formula. I was just passionately interested. I wrote my master's thesis. Fortunately, when I was writing the thesis, I met and worked with one of the world's leading experts in creative thinking. And I was teaching him some of what I learned about the Alexander technique. I was also his martial arts teacher, and I taught him how to juggle. And he taught me his methodology for creative thinking. And I applied his methodology for creative thinking to write my master's thesis. And that's part of why the thesis became so successful and got published. And I learned, I learned these ideas about creative thinking. I immediately applied them. The results were evident in how strong the thesis was. My thesis advisor said in my official review, he said, I've never seen a student's writing improve so much in the course of my academic career. He said, wow, it's as though you found your true voice. So I discovered this secret of finding your true voice. And then I started writing and speaking about that and have been doing so for many years.
Okay, but from listening to you up to this moment, you give me the impression of being the kind of person who spends his whole life in the library reading all those books that you have in your background, but at the same time, you're teaching people how to juggle and you have a black belt in martial arts. So, this is kind of astonished to make all that, to have all these different interests and to be successful in all of them at the same time.
Well, I have a lot of energy.
You probably don't have a TV either.
And a lot of curiosity. And I also learned, and I teach speed reading. So, thank you for noticing, this is not a virtual background. These are real books. And the reason I can write my books is I read all of these books. And now, thanks to contemporary media, I can listen to books on audio, and I can listen to all kinds of speakers on video. I can get access to so much wisdom and knowledge so much more quickly. It's true. When I wrote my master's thesis, I went to the library. I typed the whole thing out longhand. If I wanted to cut and paste, I actually cut the paper and pasted it.
Wow.
So amazing. It's all so much easier now, thanks to contemporary word processing and the amazing access we have to information. If you know how to look, if you know how to cross-check and make sure that the sources that you're using are accurate. So in all my books, it's interesting, when I first started writing books, I did the research, but I didn't think people necessarily wanted to know every single reference that I was using, because these weren't academic books, these were for the public. But in my most recent book, in Mastering the Art of Public Speaking, if you go to the back here, you'll find an exact reference for everything. Right. This is like a PhD thesis. And the book I wrote before that, The Art of Connection, the 7 relationship building skills every leader needs now. Both of these are from New World Library, a fantastic publisher. And they agreed with me. I said, in the world today, there's so much fake information being put out. I want people to know that this is valid. And so I want to give them the specific source. And we checked and double checked the validity of each source so that you can count on this being pretty, reliable stuff.
Okay, Michael, so I want to get to the mastering the art of public speaking, but before we get there, because you have written so much in such diversity of subject, can you just very quick tell us what are some of the titles of the other books that you have written? Because it's just it's very random. You go from Aikido to wine drinking to how to juggle. Just give us an idea of how that happened.
It may seem random, but it isn't. There's an integrating principle around so there are the 17 books that I've written so far. Okay. And it would take too much time to take everybody through all of them. But let me just talk about a few of them, and we can explain how they all fit together. So last year, I published this book. It's called The Healing Organization, Awakening the Conscience of Business to Help Save the World. And I wrote this book with Professor Raj Sisodia, the co-founder of Conscious Capitalism. So this book is a big picture of how we can help change the world by making business be more creative and compassionate.
Right.
And throughout my career, I've been working with businesses, helping them be more innovative, be more human-centered. And in this book, we present the research that shows that not only will you be happier if you do that, but you'll make more money. So you can improve the planet, you can help people, and be more profitable. So we present the data behind that, and we tell wonderful stories. So this is the real big picture of the change I want to help make in the world. However, if you want to make that change, you need to think creatively. So you have to think like Leonardo da Vinci, which is my most well-known book. But this is, if you want to learn to be creative, start by learning from the most creative person who ever lived, Leonardo da Vinci. Now, I've written other books like Innovate Like Edison, which I wrote with Thomas Edison's great-great-great-grandniece, and Creativity on Demand, and this other one called Discover Your Genius. So they're all about how you and your organization can think more creatively so you can create a healing organization.
Nice.
If you're going to do that, you also need to build relationships. So I wrote The Art of Connection to help you build better relationships. You're going to need to learn faster. That's why I wrote the juggling book, because the juggling book is really about learning. Even the wine book is about a team building exercise that I created to help people get together and think things through in a more relaxed, creative, fun way. And wine is a wonderful way to do that. If you're going to negotiate and deal with conflict, it helps to have the messages and the wisdom from the martial arts, especially the martial arts like Aikido, Tai Chi, and Qigong, that are more philosophical and less about crushing the opposition and more about finding win-win solutions to conflict. And then if you want to change the world, you need to keep getting smarter as you get older. So I wrote Brain Power, Improve Your Mind as You Age, so that when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, you can stay sharp and keep utilizing your experience. This is also New World Library, by the way. And then, of course, you have to be able to tell people about it. So that's Mastering the Art of Public Speaking. So you can see it actually all fits together, even though it wasn't all done in a linear order.
Right. Okay, Michael. So one of the biggest problems with public speaking is that people are terrified to speak in public. They, as you mentioned in the book, people, I mean, they say so that they rather die rather than to give a speech. So first of all, how can we conquer that fear? How can we get over it and be able to express ourselves in front of an audience of 10, 20, 100, 5,000?
Yes. Well, that is really what the entire book is about. Everything in the book will help you transform fear into confidence and enthusiasm. And it is a very common fear. 74% of people in a recent study in North America suffer from the fear of public speaking. It comes out as number one fear on people's on surveys of what people are afraid of. And it's because adults are afraid of embarrassment. And when you're in a group of people, it's easy to be embarrassed. And everybody remembers being in school and the teacher called on someone and the child said something that was incorrect or stumbled and everybody else laughed. And we don't want that to happen to us. So it's very common. And the first thing that really helps people realize is it is very common. And many of the best public speakers, professional actors, actresses, singers also had this deep fear, but they transformed it, and so can you. And the first step is just accepting that it's okay to have the fear, and then we learn strategies for transforming it. And the first one is simply how you talk to yourself when you used to call it fear. So one of the first simple tips we get people to do is call it excitement instead of fear.
Mm.
Changes your whole attitude. Say, oh, wow, I'm really excited about presenting. How can I use this energy of excitement to give a great presentation? And look, there are all kinds of powerful, elegant methodologies that I've drawn from the theater, from martial arts training to help you shift your physiology and change into a flow state, into a relaxed state when you're presenting. But before we even do any of those exercises, or you get to the chapters about how to do that, which are towards the end of the book, right in the beginning, I explained the simplest thing is learn how to prepare for a presentation. If you actually know what you're talking about, if you know how to tell a story about it, if you know why you're talking about it, that's the actual simplest and best way to transform fear.
Wow.
If I ask you, tell me about what you did last weekend, or what you're looking forward to going on holiday, or what's the best TV show you've seen recently, or what's your favorite wine, or what's their favorite thing to cook, or something that you love, you're passionate, you're interested about. You'll just tell me. It's no big deal. You'll tell me a story and you'll be in the natural flow and you won't be self-conscious or worried about it. Well, that's what the best speakers do. So learning to speak in a natural way, whether it's one person or 10,000 people, but in order to do that, like if I ask you, what's your favorite thing to cook, and you've told me you're a home chef, then you have plenty to talk about. But it's what we started with. Don't try to be a speaker, give a speech, if you don't have anything to say. Go back and study something more till you have something to say. Don't try to speak unless you can improve on the silence. Zip it.
Okay, Michael, the first time I gave a speech, it was in front of a group of about 20 people. They were friends of mine, and it was about a topic that I was interested about at the time. But as soon as I got in front of those people, my voice broke, my eyes started crying, um, I was sweating, my armpits were all wet, my body was experiencing this fear like I haven't experienced before, even though I was in front of a group of friends, and even though I was speaking about a subject that I had enough interest to talk about. And it only took me, I don't know, maybe so many sessions of practice to get over that fear that I felt at that time.
So here's the good news about that is, and what you described is a very common experience too. Just so again, 74% of people have had that sort of experience. And here's the good news is you obviously didn't die. You lived to tell the story. It's amazing. What's his name? Dan Harris is a ABC news commentator in the US, and he had a panic attack on live national television. And he just lost it. And what's great is that led him to start studying meditation and mindfulness. And now he wrote this, he has the top podcast called 10% Happier. He's
Right.
written a best-selling book. He gives speeches all over the world. He's made a fortune from learning from his experience of having a panic attack on national TV. So
Wow.
something that helps is, okay, so what? You didn't die. It's a
Right.
learning experience. Let's move on. And there are things you can do, because that's still an unpleasant experience. You prefer not to have it. So there's so many things that we go into in depth in the book. But just to give you one example, if you want to be sure that that doesn't happen again, even if it's with friends, even if you know what you're talking about, a couple of things you can do. The day you're about to give that talk, let's say you're going to give the talk at 11 o'clock in the morning or whatever time, we'll just pick 11 o'clock in the morning. You get up that morning and you do a super intense workout. You sweat. The best thing to do is hit a heavy bag or play racquetball or do wind sprints or get on your Peloton and choose the craziest, fastest program. So you're pouring sweat and you shift your physiology into this state where you are flowing with endorphins. That's what happens when you exercise. So you have metabolized the cortisol, the adrenaline, and the norepinephrine that were causing you those symptoms. So I'll tell you just the simplest thing, do an intense workout the day you're going to give a presentation. Odds are you'll be fine.
Okay, Michael, I know that we only have half an hour, so my last question is this one. What's the future of public speaking on times of COVID-19? I mean, professional speakers like you now have to do your job from your library over there.
Yeah.
And, many people now will not experience that sensation of being in front of a group of people. I mean, seeing you over my camera and seeing you face to face is two totally different things. So what's the future of public speaking now?
Great question. Well, first of all, I don't think they're totally different things. I actually think the same principles apply. There's different adaptations to apply the principles in a virtual setting. But, one of the important things, for example, is have a nice setting. Get a good camera, get a good microphone. That's the first thing. I mean, we already had a really nice setting. We upgraded our camera. We got the best camera we could get. We got a better microphone. We set up pretty good lighting. So everything, the good news is I was aware of COVID when I was finishing this book. But I didn't have to rewrite the whole book. Now we're in a new era of, I wrote a piece that said, everything you've learned in this book is even more important when you are presenting virtually. So the future of public speaking will be hybrid. And I'll give you an example. So I did a seminar for Fordham University. I teach there in New York. And I was there 2 weeks ago, and I was in a big seminar room. I had a handful of people live in the room, and I had 39 people live on Zoom.
Right.
So I was talking to the people who are actually present in the space and the people who I was with on Zoom at the same time. So that was something that was, again, already happening because we had people coming in from different remote locations for presentations. At the moment, for the next little while, there'll be more stuff happening virtually, more stuff happening on Skype or Zoom or Webinar Jam or Google, whatever platform people are using. And I would say that now that we've learned how well we can do in this modality, there'll be a lot more meetings, a lot more presentations, a lot less travel expense to get people together, because there's a lot that can be done in these virtual modalities. And I'm loving it. I'm doing these programs and I have people all over the world and we're all together, which is, to me, is just miraculous and wonderful. So there's certain advantages. On the other hand, nothing will ever replace being with other real humans in the same actual space. I've done virtual wine tastings with people, but drinking wine together is better. And for the moment, we've started doing things where we're doing things together and everybody's 6 feet apart. But, maybe it's next year at this time, maybe it's 18 months, maybe it's 2 years. We're back together, and it's a great time to work on your public speaking so that you can go and thrill crowds of people live.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, Michael, I'm so grateful that you spend this time with us. Can you tell us where can people find you, all your social media handles and your website? And yes, thank you so much for writing this amazing book. I love it.
Thank you so much. The best place is at michaelgelb.com. That's Gelb, michaelgelb.com. If people go to michaelgelb.com, they can sign up. We have a free newsletter. If they go to the resources page, they can order all the books. We also have lots of free videos, articles, blogs, and really cool links to all sorts of wonderful resources. So michaelgelb.com is the place to go.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure. Great speaking with you. Cheers.
Cheers.